Men, the most angriest manipulation doesn't arrive as aggression or obvious control. It comes wrapped in sweetness, delivered with a smile, and packaged as love that you'd be wrong to question. Some women have perfected the art of using affection as a weapon, transforming what looks like caring into a control system so subtle you won't realize you're being manipulated until you've already surrendered your autonomy. The problem isn't that she's being kind. The problem is that her kindness has conditions, consequences, and a clear agenda that serves her control while making you feel guilty for noticing. You're not dealing with genuine sweetness. You're dealing with strategic affection deployed to keep you compliant, confused, and convinced that questioning her intentions makes you the problem. Before we break down these psychological signs, hit subscribe, smash that like button, and drop a comment if you've ever felt controlled by someone who only showed you kindness. Your recognition might help another man see the manipulation hiding behind the smile. Sign 1. Her sweetness has perfect timing. Genuine kindness is relatively consistent and appears because she feels affectionate, not because she needs something from you. Manipulative sweetness appears strategically, right after you've established a boundary, right before she asks for something significant, or immediately after conflict when accountability should be happening. Her affection isn't random. It's weaponized timing designed to disarm your resistance or derail necessary conversations. Notice when her sweetness intensifies. Does she become exceptionally loving when you're about to make an independent decision she doesn't like? Does affection surge right before she reveals plans you're expected to participate in? If her sweetness has suspicious correlation with moments when you might resist her agenda, the timing reveals the manipulation. Watch what happens after the sweet moment passes. Does she maintain that affection, or does it evaporate once she's gotten what she needed? If sweetness appears and disappears based on whether you're currently useful or compliant, you're not experiencing love. You're experiencing strategic deployment of affection to achieve specific outcomes. Pay attention to whether her kindness prevents or enables important conversations. Does her sweetness after conflict create space for genuine resolution, or does it shut down accountability by making you feel guilty for staying upset? If her affection consistently prevents necessary confrontation, the sweetness is a shield against consequences, not genuine remorse. The psychological mechanism is using perfectly timed affection to manipulate your emotional state at critical moments. She becomes sweet exactly when you need to be firm, loving exactly when you should be angry, and affectionate exactly when you need clarity. This timing isn't coincidence. It's calculation designed to keep you off balance and unable to maintain boundaries. The long-term impact is losing the ability to trust your own emotional responses. You can't stay appropriately angry because her sweetness makes anger feel wrong. You can't maintain boundaries because her affection makes firmness feel cruel. You're being trained to doubt your legitimate reactions because her strategic sweetness arrives precisely when those reactions need to be honored. Sign 2. Her kindness creates debt. You never agreed to genuine generosity is freely given without expectation of specific repayment. Manipulative kindness comes with an invisible ledger where every sweet gesture is recorded as debt you're expected to repay on her terms. She does things you didn't ask for, gives gifts you didn't want, and makes sacrifices you never requested. Then references this generosity whenever you resist her control, as if her unsolicited kindness created obligation you must honor. Notice whether her sweet gestures feel free or whether they come with strings attached. Does she do something nice and let it be, or does she create situations where you feel indebted? Genuine kindness doesn't require repayment. Manipulative kindness is an investment she expects to cash in later with interest. Watch whether she keeps score. Does she remember every kind thing she's done while forgetting your reciprocation? Does she calculate the value of her generosity versus yours during arguments? If she's maintaining a mental ledger of who owes whom, her kindness isn't love. It's a transaction system where you're always in debt. Pay attention to what she expects in return. Does she want gratitude and appreciation, or does she want compliance and control? If her sweetness becomes justification for why you should sacrifice your boundaries, accept her demands, or tolerate poor treatment, the kindness was never free. It was always a down payment on future obedience. The psychological mechanism is creating artificial obligation through unsolicited generosity. By giving constantly without being asked, she builds a debt you never agreed to incur, but can't escape, because accepting her kindness created implicit agreement to repayment terms she decides. You're trapped by gratitude that's been weaponized into guilt. The long-term impact is perpetual indebtedness, where you can never establish boundaries because she's been so good to you. You can't leave because, after everything she's done, you can't resist because you'd be ungrateful after all her sacrifices. Her sweetness has accumulated into chains made of obligation, and questioning whether you asked for any of it makes you seem like you don't appreciate her love. Sign 3. Her affection is conditional. On your compliance. Genuine love has relatively stable baseline warmth even during disagreements. Manipulative sweetness disappears completely when you don't comply, returning only when you submit to her preferences. She's loving when you agree, cold when you don't, affectionate when you obey, distant when you resist. You're not experiencing unconditional care. You're being trained through intermittent reinforcement where her warmth is the reward for compliance and her coldness is punishment for autonomy. Notice whether her affection remains relatively consistent or whether it correlates precisely with your compliance. Does she stay warm even when you disagree, or does her temperature drop immediately when you assert independence? If her sweetness is only available when you're obeying, you're being conditioned like a dog with treats. Watch what happens when you make choices she disagrees with. Does she maintain connection while expressing her perspective, or does she withdraw completely until you change your mind? Healthy partners can disagree and stay connected. Manipulative partners use disconnection as punishment for non-compliance. Pay attention to whether you've started making decisions based on maintaining her warmth rather than based on your actual preferences. Are you choosing what you want, or are you choosing what keeps her sweet? If you're constantly calculating how your choices will affect her affection level, you're not in a relationship. You're in a compliance-based reward system. The psychological mechanism is operant conditioning, where obedience receives warmth and independence receives coldness. Over time, you learn that her sweetness is only accessible through submission, so you submit automatically to avoid the pain of her emotional withdrawal. You're not choosing to comply. You're being trained to associate autonomy with loss of love. The long-term impact is complete loss of self, as you've learned that being yourself results in emotional abandonment, while being what she wants results in affection. Your authentic preferences disappear because expressing them costs you access to her warmth. You've become a performance designed to maintain her sweetness because you've learned that the real you doesn't deserve her love. Sign 4. Her sweetness prevents you from saying no. Genuine kindness makes you feel free to have boundaries because the person respects your limits. Manipulative sweetness makes saying no feel impossible because she's been so sweet to you that refusing her request seems cruel. She uses her affection as leverage that makes your boundaries feel like betrayal. How can you say no to someone who's been nothing but kind? How can you refuse someone who loves you so much? Notice whether her sweetness empowers your autonomy or imprisons it. Does her kindness make you feel free to make your own choices, or does it make refusing her feel guilty? Genuine affection respects boundaries. Manipulative sweetness makes boundaries feel like you're hurting someone who's only been good to you. Watch what happens when you try to say no. Does she accept it gracefully, or does she reference all her kindness as evidence that you owe her yes? Does she make you feel like refusing her request is rejecting her love? If you can't decline without her sweetness becoming a weapon used against your boundaries, the kindness was never free. Pay attention to whether you've stopped saying no entirely. Have you accepted that refusing her is impossible because she'll make you feel terrible about it? If you're automatically agreeing to things you don't want to do because her sweetness has made no feel cruel, you're trapped in a system where her affection has purchased your compliance. The psychological mechanism is using kindness to eliminate your right to refuse. By being sweet, she creates a context where saying no makes you the villain who's rejecting someone lovely. Your boundaries become evidence of your cruelty rather than legitimate self-protection. And she uses her sweetness as proof that you have no good reason to refuse her. The long-term impact is complete boundary dissolution, where you've learned that having limits means you're ungrateful, mean, or don't appreciate her love. You say yes to everything regardless of your own needs, because her sweetness has made your autonomy feel like betrayal. You're trapped by affection that was only ever sweet on the surface, while serving as chains underneath. Sign 5. Her kindness isolates you from reality checks. Genuine sweetness coexists comfortably with your outside relationships because real love isn't threatened by external perspectives. Manipulative sweetness works to separate you from anyone who might question the relationship dynamic, point out concerning patterns, or validate your perception that something feels wrong. She's sweet to you while ensuring no one else has access to the full picture, creating isolation where her version of reality becomes the only version you hear. Notice whether she encourages or discourages outside relationships. Does she support your connections with friends and family who might offer perspective, or does she create drama around people who've expressed concern? If she's particularly opposed to anyone who's questioned the relationship or noticed changes in you, their outside perspective is exactly what she needs to eliminate. Watch whether you've started hiding relationship details from people who care about you. Are you avoiding certain topics with friends because you know they'll question what you're describing? If you're managing others' perceptions of the relationship because you know the full truth would concern them, her sweetness has successfully isolated you from reality checks that might expose the manipulation. Pay attention to whether she positions herself as the only person who truly understands you. Does she claim that others don't get your relationship, don't appreciate how you've grown, or are jealous of what you have together? If she's created a narrative where only she sees the real you and everyone else is wrong, she's isolated you in a reality where her perspective is the only valid one. The psychological mechanism is using sweetness to create a bubble where external perspectives can't penetrate. She's kind enough that you feel guilty questioning the relationship, while ensuring that no one else has enough information or access to validate your concerns. You're trapped in her version of reality because she's eliminated all the reference points that might show you the manipulation. The long-term impact is complete isolation where you've lost access to objective feedback. Your friends have stopped sharing concerns because you defended her every time. Your family feels distant because she's gradually reduced that contact. You're alone with her sweetness, which means you have no way to check whether what feels wrong actually is wrong, or if you're just being ungrateful for someone who's been nothing but kind to you.